All right, everyone, welcome into episode 135 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports here on this June 18th, 2024, the day before Juneteenth, the newest federal holiday here in the United States. I'm Nick Hill, live from Chattanooga, Tennessee, as always, and joining me from Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gus Tomazeli. Gus, how are you doing here on this Tuesday evening?
I'm doing great, doing great. Of course, always good when when you start then or resumes the season with the win, and we're going to talk about later into the pod here in this beautiful stadium that is in my background, and definitely some great topics to talk about both in Brazilian and American sports. But definitely, we have to start the show with a not a very happy note.
Right, because it has just unfortunately broke here that legendary baseball player Willie Mays, 24-time MLB All-Star, has passed away at the age of 93 years old. Absolute legend. Um, he was born in 1931 in Alabama. Of course, you know the history. That's during segregation. When he started his professional career, he couldn't even play in the MLB. Jackie Robinson starts in the mid 40s, and it took a couple of years for more and more African American players to be accepted into the MLB. But he eventually was able to get on with the San Francisco Giants in 1954 and just took off from there and, had a legendary career, won multiple MVPs, won the World Series in 1954. Of course, he made a huge play during that. And overall just had one of the best careers of all time. And it really is kind of ironic here. Tomorrow is Juneteenth. If you don't know what that holiday is, it's been a federal holiday now in the United States since 2021. It's been celebrated in Texas for years. Basically, it's the day the last slaves in Texas learned of the Emancipation Proclamation, which was June 19th, 1865. And there were slaves in this country who had no idea that they had, been, granted free by President Lincoln during the American Civil War. So, that's the day that the final ones figured out, or found out rather, that they were no longer slaves, which is where the whole idea of Juneteenth comes from. And Willie Mays' story is, he's one of those guys that broke through the glass. And Jackie Robinson was the first one, but Willie Mays was very important. Was one of the ones that came up with him to really, allow for black players to really be able to thrive in the MLB. And he's definitely someone that will, be remembered for, not just obviously the social aspect of his play, but how amazing he was to win 12 Golden Gloves, to win the Roberto Clemente Award, to win, be the four-time NL home run leader, that four-time NL stolen base. He hit for 660 home runs in his career. Had a 3.01 batting average. I mean, just unbelievable stats in a career that not many will come close to replicating.
Oh yeah, for sure. Willie Mays was an iconic uh, person. Definitely, he's going to be entrenched into baseball history, not only Major League Baseball, but throughout. I guess he had played in the Negroes League. I think.
Yes. Yeah. And what's crazy about that is I actually just met some Negro League players the other day. On Friday, I covered a story because the Chattanooga Lookouts last weekend were honoring some former Negro League players. So these guys are like in their 80s and 90s because these leagues haven't really existed since the 1950s. But some of those players are still around, which really just goes to show that really dark part of our history here in the United States is not that long ago. I mean, there are people alive who still remember when black baseball players were super talented and should have been playing with the Joe DiMaggios of the 1940s. It should have gotten to go up against like Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig back in the 30s. Uh, they weren't given a chance. They had to play on their own leagues. And you have to wonder what the Satchel Pages of the world, rather, would have gone to do in the MLB. And, Willie Mays, got his opportunity and showed, yeah, we can compete with these guys. And, the rest is history from there.
And it's ironic that in the year that the stats of the Negro Leagues are going to be connected with Major League Baseball, a player that kind of connected both worlds passed away.
Oh yeah, I mean this is just a very important just sports figure, and maybe not thought of the same as like a Jackie Robinson. He doesn't have his own day like him. It's not Muhammad Ali, uh, but Willie Mays did him, and he'll always remember for example, at the over-the-shoulder catch in the 1954 World Series, where there's actually a very similar play the other day by Hunter Ensley in the College World Series, where he basically had to catch the ball that was coming from behind him, and that helped him win his only World Series. So arguably, has a case maybe for the greatest player of all time. When you look at just all of the stats he accumulated and being able to win it all. Of course, he played for the Giants and he played for the New York Mets as well at the very end of his career, but definitely mostly a Giants. I'm sure the San Francisco Giants will have a beautiful tribute for him um, at some point in the near future.
Oh yeah, for sure, definitely. The Giants is, I think, the team that most show the importance of African American players. Not only Willie Mays, but Barry Bonds. Then, and because of all the controversy that he had, he's still one of the most power hitters of all time. So definitely, Willie Mays opened the field for Barry Bonds and so many other African American players.
Yeah, so I just want to show this catch I'm talking about. So this is from 1954. So I don't think copyright will be much of an issue here, I would hope. So you can see, of course, black and white, and boom. Had to run deep into center field to get it, and this helped them win a title.
Yeah, because it was hard because he couldn't see the ball coming his way. He had to feel the ball.
Yeah, and I believe I was reading that it was 483 feet deep into center field.
Yeah, like the tweet said, one of the best catches of all time in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, of course, the Giants, they tweeted out, is with great sadness we announced that San Francisco Giants legend and Hall of Famer Willie Mays passed away peacefully this afternoon at the age of 93. And they have him as Forever Giant. And their logo on Twitter now is just 24.
Yeah, I would think to honor his number when he played for the San Francisco Giants.
Right. So, absolutely. So, rest in peace to an absolute legend. And it's just been an awful run here recently. We lost Bill Walton, Jerry West, and now we've lost Willie Mays. So, we're losing a lot of sports legends who played in a much different era and who have contributed, all three of them contributed so much to American sports.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing that, as time passes, new sports legends are gonna come to life, but the old, the historical ones, the ones that open and play in play earlier, are gonna unfortunately pass away because there are one or the only two certain people say the two certainties in life are taxes and death. So
Yeah. And it's a reminder to appreciate life and live it to the full. And obviously, Willie Mays um, uh,
yeah, he did that. He
got
definitely
93 yards, got 93 years of it. And I think
yeah.
this is actually, I've got the moment here where San Francisco announced it on their broadcast. So I'm going to pull this up. So this was as it was announced in San Francisco.
We are very sad now to relay this information that has just been released by the Giants that the great Willie Mays has passed away. He passed away peacefully this afternoon at the age of 93. As the Giants come to bat here in the fifth inning with Jorge Soler, then Nick Ahmed and Yastrzemski. The Giants release said it is with great sadness that we announce that Giants legend and Hall of Famer Willie Mays passed away peacefully this afternoon. Uh, Michael Mays, Willie's son, quoted as saying, "My father has passed away peacefully and among loved ones. I want to thank you all from the bottom of my broken heart, but we are very sad now to relay this information that is just."
Yeah, so that was as it was announced today. So they're playing right now. Obviously, their Twitter account's not really tweeting about the game because, you know, it would, I guess,
Yeah,
be
like
in
one.
poor taste.
Yeah. Like today's one of the kind of days. Like no Giant fan are gonna be bothered by the lack of information of regular season game in June when you have uh, uh, a legend that passed away.
Right, because they're in Chicago tonight. So they're still going. They're bottom of the sixth inning, 2-2. But, yeah, just, you know, another legend for us to remember. And definitely rest in peace to him and prayers out to his family and any of his teammates that might still be alive and all of his friends.
Yeah, definitely his family as well. Like his son that I would imagine was with Willie up until the moment that he went to rest in peace. And definitely um, I'll say hopefully I'll send my thoughts and prayers to his family.
Absolutely. Willie Mays passed away. If you missed it at the top of the show, passed away at the age of 93. All right. So we'll transition here into some NBA Finals talk. Of course, the series has concluded. And I must also just mention that the Stanley Cup Finals is ongoing. And we might not be done tonight here on the ice. Edmonton right now up 3-0 in technically Sunrise. Well, they're up 3-1 now. Florida actually just scored. But Florida does hold a 3-1 lead in the series, but they are down 3-1 in this game in the second period. So we may be going back to Canada for game 6, but we'll get into that more here in just a minute. Actually, we got a lot to talk about the NBA. Let's just knock out Stanley Cup while we're on the topic
Yeah.
here. Do we think there's any shots Edmonton comes back? Because I'll be honest, I thought Florida would kind of take care of Edmonton like Boston did Dallas, but that's not the case. And I will say this: Edmonton and Florida really dominated the first 3 games of the series, won each one of them by 3 goals. Edmonton dominated Game 4, kind of like the way we saw the Mavs dominate Game 4 in the NBA Finals, but this is surprising to me because I will say this: if Edmonton pulls this one off, then all pressure squarely, especially right now. I mean, starting from this moment, all the pressure right now is on Florida because now if you lose tonight and have to go back to Edmonton, I mean, anything can happen because you go back to Canada, they can definitely take you down at home. And then if it's a game 7, all the pressure's on Florida because you blew a 3-0 lead. So I figured that Florida needed to figure out a way to get this done tonight, or else things could really unravel from them pretty quickly.
Yeah, kind of like what happened to Golden State Warriors in 2016.
Absolutely, but that was just a free one. I mean, we're talking about a 3-0. I mean, how many times has a 3-0 lead been blown? Because I think it's happened a couple of times. It would be, it's happened once in the Stanley Cup Finals from none other than Toronto. So, of course, that happened in 1942. So that's a very, very long time ago. But it happened in 1939, 1949 Stanley Cup Finals. It's happened 5 times. It happened twice in 2011. Vancouver came back 3-0 from Chicago, and San Jose came back 3-0 from Detroit. So it's only happened twice in the last 50 years. And it hasn't it's only happened once in the finals in 1945. So,
yeah, like you mentioned, all the pressures on Florida right now to like finish the series, and if Edmonton come back to win the series, then it would be probably the most important and historical Stanley Cup that was won by a Canadian team.
Oh, for sure. 'Cause I'll be honest, if Florida doesn't find a way to come back and win tonight, I think we're going to be back in Florida for Game 7. And all bets are off at that point. And honestly, at that point, because I still think Florida can come back and get this today, but with Connor McDavid, anything can happen. So yeah, I mean, Florida needs to find a way to get this done tonight. They got to come back tonight.
Yeah, to close at home.
Yeah, you don't want to go back to Edmonton if you're Florida. So we'll see what happens because this is pretty surprising. In any case, so we are going to let's head over to the series that is finished though. The NBA Finals came and went, frankly, with a whimper. The Boston Celtics won in 5 in a series where basically every game was a blowout. And Boston, the 1 seed in the East, just steamrolled their way for these playoffs, 16-3. And do we think this is the first of many? Because this is a team that's young, they're really deep. Maybe not have like the most talented player in the league, but they have a really just solid collection of players. Is this a team that's built to last?
Kinda, because they're gonna have to make tough decisions. With Jason Tatum, new contract, you're probably gonna get the max, and then other players are gonna have to resign. So, so Brad Stevens are gonna have to really figure out a way either to keep or find new pieces that are gonna fit in his budget. But overall, the Celtics truly deserve this title. They were the best team in the NBA, period, this season. There was no argument. The regular season and the playoff numbers just show that. I thought the series was going to be a little more competitive, but it just feel that Boston kind of took the foot out of the gas in game number 4 and kind of like, hey, we can't afford to lose one game and let's finish at home. Like that's what the feeling that game 4 loss.
Yeah, and I think in retrospect, seeing how they came out in Game 5, they wanted to finish it at home, which, I mean, it's a dangerous game to play. I mean, the Florida Panthers are learning that right now after losing Game 4 in Edmonton, that you're not guaranteed winning Game 5 at home if the other team shows up and plays. But for Boston, they were able to do that thing. And, I guess we're going to intertwine some of the topics here I wrote. But Dallas, it was pretty amazing, right, that they made it to the NBA Finals, considering that outside of Kyrie and Luka, the team isn't fantastic. And that lack of depth really showed in these finals. They just did not have the horses after their top 2 players. Of course, Kyrie, frankly, wasn't fantastic in this series. Kyrie had some amazing games during the Western Conference playoffs that he just was not able to replicate in this series. And the thing about Luka, Luka averaged 29 points a game in this series. I mean, that's what Luka does. Luka is a scoring machine. But the problem for Luka is his true weakness just reamed and exposed throughout this entire series. The defense. The defense was poor from Luka. And of course, Luka has never been known as a good defender. But it was really exposed in this series. And Joe Mazzulla, you have to give credit to him and his coaching staff. They completely just dominated. Dominated, were able to expose Luka. And shout out to Nick Stringer, my friend. He is also a friend of Jason Wyrick. And he is a big Celtics fan, celebrating the 18th championship for the Boston Celtics.
The first one of this new decade, because it went
it was 16 years.
16 years without a title.
Joe is the McVay of the NBA. I mean, honestly, I have to agree, right? I mean, both are very young coaches. Both are analytical in the way they approach things. Because the Boston Celtics, the way they're built, we haven't seen an NBA team built like this in a very long time. Because for a long time, the NBA was dominated by the superstar-led teams like the Miami Heat. We saw the Golden State Warriors, for example, the Oklahoma City Thunder in the early 2010s with KD and Russell Westbrook. But the Boston Celtics are a true top to bottom, well-oiled machine team that has been built gradually year after year. You can think of the Brooklyn Nets, for example, for just a horrific trade. I know the Celtics have been able to get some other good trades in that time period. And really, you have to think, Danny Ainge and Brad Stevens as GMs, because the way they were able to construct this team one piece at a time was just fantastic. And for Brad Stevens, I think this is, a solidification for him that he is one of the preeminent basketball minds in the world, if not maybe the most. Because think about what he was able to do at Butler, taking them to back-to-back national championship games, being a successful head coach with Boston, then has become a GM, has led him to a championship as a GM. Nick said, Celtics trusted the process. Thank you, 76ers, for messing up back-to-back drafts. Yeah, exactly. And I think he's referring to the one where the 76ers took Markelle Fultz, and that didn't work.
that's the one that came to my mind as well.
Yeah, and of course, that led to the Celtics. I forget if that was one where they got Jaylen Brown or if they got Tatum in that one. But anyway, they got both of those players for the draft. And because think about it, when you look at like free agent signings, the two big free agents on this Celtics team are Horford and Drew Holiday. Tatum, Nick says. And like Horford and Drew Holiday, and of course Kristaps Porzingis as well, and of course Porzingis they got for a trade. But I mean, the rest of the team was built for the draft, and that is super impressive. It's almost sort of similar in a way to the Warriors, because you look at they drafted Curry, they drafted Thompson, they drafted Green. Of course, they got KD in 2016 through free agency. But in 2015, when they won their first title, that was basically a team they had completely drafted, and basically the same with their last title in 22. So it'll be interesting to see how this core progresses, because now they have a championship, and I really think the big thing for them is, can anyone in the East catch up to them? Nick said that they won the G League too. So, man, Brad Stevens is just cooking. He is cooking.
And what is most impressive was the way they won, because everybody knew the Celtics roster were good for so many years, but they couldn't show in the big game. And they did that in a very impressive way. That was, to me, what stand out the most.
Right, and the fact that they have so many players that they could rely on, like it's just insane how deep this team actually is. And it was a lost art in this. It was such a lost art in the NBA. And the point I was about to make is, can anyone in the East threaten them, right? Because, you have the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis and Damian Lillard, but I think they have a lot of work they got to do around the rest of that roster.
Edmonton scored.
Yeah, I saw that. 4-1.
4-1.
Perry. Man, it's looking like we're going back to that, but Florida scored right back.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
This Number 17.
Yeah, tons of goals in Sunrise, Florida, 4-2. But McDavid is nuts. I absolutely agree. But when you look at Milwaukee, right, they have 2 straight first-round exits. But Giannis is still Giannis, right? He won the 21 title, and if Milwaukee can fix the rest of that roster, I would have to think the Bucks would be the biggest threat to Boston in the East. Now, can Indiana continue to grow, right? Because Indiana, out of all the teams Boston played, frankly gave them the toughest series. Now, I know it was a sweep, but 3. He says
they were really close games, because they won all 4 games, but they weren't blowouts like the finals.
Exactly. And it's just that when it came to the Pacers, you clearly had a more composed Celtics team that had been in that position before, had learned from previous failures, and were able to find ways to finish. And the Pacers just made some really dumb mistakes in those losses. So if the Pacers can come back and learn how to do that, I'm going to remember the Pacers also went to the in-season tournament final this year too. So they had a lot of success in their tournament format, and maybe they can build themselves up to being uh, a contender. But outside of those teams, like I don't believe in the Knicks long term. Knicks asking,
And
would Giannis go to the Knicks?
uh, I mean, if that happens, then the Knicks roster would have closed perfectly because what the Knicks missing is a number one. Because all those players, the Knicks have are a really deep roster, but you need to have a number one,
Would
like what
not,
happened
would
to
Giannis
Boston.
work with Tom Thibodeau though? Tom Thibodeau runs his players into the ground, and Giannis likes some nights off from time to time. I don't know about that, but I mean, in a vacuum, I mean the Knicks would definitely have a chance against Boston with Giannis. 100%. Would probably have the best chance in the East against Boston with Giannis.
Yeah, I agree with you. I definitely think the teams in the East, like, because the East is like, if you think about the core of the East is now better than the core of the West, which 10 years ago would have been unthinkable.
Right. The West is there's just a lot of teams that are together, but none of them are elite. I mean, when Oklahoma City was your number one seed this year, you knew that like the top of the West wasn't as good as we think. Because I mean, Denver in a vacuum was, I still think, honestly the best team in the West, but they just for some reason couldn't finish it against Minnesota. Like they just have one solid quarter um, against them at the end of Game 7. Like Denver, I still think would have made it to the finals. And while I think Boston still beats Denver, and I think they would have had it would have taken them 6 or 7 to get it done with Jokic and Jamal Murray. Like I still think that, frankly, that team to me is still better, but they just didn't get it done. Can Minnesota continue to grow? Right, with of course Anthony Edwards is only 23 years old. Like you would have to think Minnesota is going to continue to grow. And this is the thing for Dallas. Circling back to them, I don't know if they're going to get back because I feel like everything fell into place for them perfectly. They caught an Oklahoma City team that wasn't ready to be the 1 seed. They caught a Minnesota team that was still really, really young. They got to avoid Denver. They got to avoid LeBron and the Lakers. They got to avoid Kawhi Leonard with the Los Angeles Clippers. Like they got a lot of breaks to get to the NBA Finals. And then when they finally ran into the buzzsaw, the Boston Celtics that didn't really have any injuries, they got Kristaps Porzingis back. Dallas just didn't have it. Next says Minnesota should trade Gobert for some depth pieces of liability. Honestly, and if I'm Dallas, I would consider buying him. Like Gobert would, I think, be a huge addition for Dallas. Because I mean, Gobert's not the best player in the world, obviously. I think, when you look at his performance in the Dallas series, it wasn't fantastic. But he's a better big man than what Dallas has right now. It would help them out defensively, considering that that's a huge problem right now for Dallas. They are not a good defensive basketball team, and they're never going to win a championship if they don't invest on that side of the basketball. I mean, even when you look back at previous superstars, like Jordan, obviously was an offensive guy. Never was the best defender, right? Like they had to get some other dudes in there, like a Scottie Pippen, to really help bolster
And
the defense. Get Rodman.
and interesting how you point that out, but the comparison that I will make is that Dallas team felt like the Cavs 2007 when they were too much dependent on LeBron. Do you think maybe Dallas is kind of like getting kind of like that with Luca?
Well, I mean, LeBron didn't have a Kyrie though in 2007, in my view. And the second best player on that team was probably Ilgauskas. Probably, like, yeah, it certainly wasn't the same as having Kyrie and LeBron. I mean, but LeBron and Luca, I guess, are at least somewhat similar positions. If you compare 2007 LeBron with this year's Luca, um, and I do think Luca, I think, was a bit rattled too. I mean, there are a lot of times where he was complaining to the refs, and I think the Boston crowd got to him, right? Because I mean, they were all amped up for Kyrie, and in fact, they were just back in the finals, and Boston just has one of the best home courts in the NBA. A lot of NBA home courts are not that good, but Boston is one of those places that does have a good home court, and I think for Luka that got to him just a little bit. So
Oh yeah, and
definitely
Kyrie too, because Kyrie, think about it, he went to Boston with so many hopes to be the star, and he left in disgrace.
true. And it's interesting because this year is a redemption for Kyrie, because he's been on a downward spiral since the whole Boston failure, and of course had the whole off the court controversy with his comments about Jewish people, but has actually kind of regained himself this year. But still, it's kind of ironic that even in a year where he regained himself, he still couldn't overcome the place where he failed. So that's just interesting to me.
Oh yeah, definitely. But maybe that will fuel Dallas to come back, because they might have a sense of, hey, we came that far in a year that nobody expect us to be.
True. But I'll say this. I think for Dallas, it's going to be just really hard for them to come back being in the West. And they're going to need to find a way to either Luka's going to have to become a lot better in defense, or find some defensive pieces around him. Because to me, this was almost like, what if this, Carmelo Anthony got to the NBA Finals in this peak in the 20s when he was on the Denver Nuggets? That's almost what this felt like
Yeah, totally.
to me. And I hope
Definitely.
Luka doesn't turn out to be another Carmelo where he's just all offense. And Luka, I think, is a better offensive player than Melo was at his peak. But you're gonna have to play some defense to win a championship. It just is what it is.
Yeah, like I said earlier, when you are too much focused on the offensive side of the ball, you became a liability to the defense.
True. And I think, for Luka, too, I almost wonder if this will start becoming a narrative, Giannis, there's the big three European players right now. And Wemby Giannis probably going to eventually jump into this conversation eventually. But, Jokic has a title. Giannis has a title. Luka right now does not. Do we think that's going to become like a talking point at some point? Because I think all three of those European players, they all came in at roughly the same time. They really are the first generation, the first wave of these European superstars taking over the NBA. And I know Nowinski was before, and some other guys, but I mean,
Well,
really now this is the first
I
wave
think,
of European domination.
I think he'll get the pressure. For example, uh, in a couple of years, Wemby wins his title, then the pressure goes really, really to Luca.
Right. Of course, the Wemby and the Spurs are a long way away from doing that, but I could see them doing it eventually if the Spurs are able to build around him successfully. Um, but yeah, but still, certainly the Celtics definitely deserve to win this game for sure. And just what are your thoughts on Jaylen Brown getting MVP over Tatum?
I think because he had a better performance when needed the most. I think he definitely took over the series, and I don't think Jason Tatum is gonna be mad. Like, he clearly felt that with another player to take the big role, it kind of relieved him to be the good player that he is.
Right, and I think too defensively, that Jaylen Brown earned it as well. So it's because you think about plus minus, Jaylen Brown had 2.8 plus, and Jason Tatum had a 1.2 plus. So they roughly had the same offensive stats, and I think Jaylen Brown just had a little bit of the edge there. You could have given it to either one of them, and I wouldn't have been mad about it. But I mean, this is an interesting topic, when it comes to Tatum, and now he has a title. And I don't know if people really have talked about Jason Tatum as that superstar in the realm of other top superstar players in the NBA. And I guess that may become a talking point where, like, just Boston just have a really good team around Tatum, so that makes him look like a superstar, or is he actually that guy? Because I'll say this: I think in the NBA, to win a championship, you got to have a really good team around you. That's just the facts. Like, if you don't have a really good team, you're not winning the title. Like,
And
look at Luka. Yeah.
And I think this Boston Celtic win solidified the mentality of We need a complete roster, not three really, really gifted basketball players that probably play overseas. Instead, you need to build your roster to be the more complete.
Right, and and I think this is exactly why like Dan Hurley didn't want to go to the Lakers last week because LeBron still is like the last holdout of this mentality of, oh, I want a superstar team that goes through me and Anthony Davis. That's not going to be successful anymore. This isn't 2010 anymore. You have to have full complete rosters. Like Oklahoma City might be a team that might be like 3 to 5 years away from looking like Boston. I still think they have some growth they've got to do, but the pieces they have early on with like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, like those are built-in blocks to really be a title team one day. So it's not all about superstars, and Boston and Brad Stevens have proven that very much. And really, too, when it comes to just Boston as a whole, what about Boston makes them such a title town? This is their 13th championship since 2000. Like 6 with Patriots, 2 with the Celtics, uh, 3 with the Red Sox, and 1 with the Bruins. Like they just win so many championships in Boston.
I mean, I guess we can call Boston the sports capital of America, like no doubt about it, or the championship city, because as you point out, they won so many titles. First was the Celtics, then the Bruins, then the Patriots uh, got their dynasty like from 2003 until like 2020. So I think Boston definitely has that kind of feeling, and it was good to close out at home. I feel like the energy was unprecedented at the arena.
Oh, for sure. And it's just, yeah, there's some voodoo magic in the Massachusetts Bay. That's all I can say on that. Between Nashville and Atlanta and the Vols, there's one title I've seen in that same time span. So, in any case, maybe we'll add another one in a week or so, but we'll get to that here in just a little bit. Um, but I guess to wrap up discussion on the NBA here, um, you know, I saw a stat where like Game Four, well, only had less than 10 million viewers, which was the lowest since the COVID um, season.
Uh,
And I'll be honest, like in terms of just being a casual viewer who didn't really have a rooting interest in this series, um, this was probably one of the least entertaining series.
oh
And
yeah, for sure. It's like by halftime I was sleeping, and everybody knew Celtics was gonna dominate after game 2. So then the interest decreased. But yeah, and there were no polarizing players. Like there's a difference between having a really good basketball player star, but then a polarizing player that get people to the television.
right, and it's like think about like 2011. Think about when it was the Mavericks versus the Heat, and that was LeBron's first time in Miami. Think about how everyone was rooting against LeBron in that series, and when he collapsed, think about the narratives that spawned for years about LeBron James until he came back from 3-1 against the 73-9 Warriors. And then KD, and that was after the Warriors had come back themselves from 3-1 against Oklahoma State. And it felt like the early 2010 to mid 2010s NBA Finals had some serious storylines. We saw the Heat Spurs back to back, was the Heat get a miracle shot from Ray Allen to win Game 6 that leads to a win in Game 7. The Spurs come back and pay them back the year after. Of course, Kawhi goes to Toronto for 1 year and beats the Warriors. Um, the storylines, honestly, it's not just this year, across this decade have not been good. I mean, think about the finals that we have seen, right? 2020, we're in the bubble. The Lakers win a Mickey Mouse ring. It has been properly denigrated
De-
online.
Demoted, definitely a demoted NBA Finals.
Right. It's still an NBA championship, but it doesn't feel the same when you won it at Disney World. I'm sorry. You won it in the Coronado Springs Resort Gymnasium. Like that's not the same as any other championship. Of course, 21. You saw the Bucks Suns, which was a decent series, but like I said Giannis, Booker. Those aren't really like polarizing figures. 22. Of course, Celtics Warriors, interesting series. Cool to see and solidified like Curry as like an all-time great to get a Finals MVP for him because that was a long-standing narrative about him. And then last year was a really forgettable one with Heat's Nuggets.
No, yeah, I think this Europeization of the NBA, especially they taking over teams, the audience are gonna lose interest a little bit because there's no polarizing European players. They are disciplined, they play really good, but they don't engage. They don't make people come to the television to watch them. Only like the diehard NBA fans.
Exactly, and the NBA needs that lightning rod. Look, like they need like a Caitlin Clark.
Yeah,
With the WNBA, which by the way, I saw their game against the Sky on Sunday was the highest watched WNBA game in 23 years. So, yeah, that's
yeah, yeah, definitely a deserving title for sure. It's so funny that since the dominance that the Celtics had in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, titles have become scarce. Then after 86, they only won in '08 with the trio: Ray Allen, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, and then finally after that another title in 2024. So the Celtics fans are thinking, are we going to see a title soon, or is going to be another drought?
Well, I mean, and the thing about that is there's just many more teams now. It's a lot harder to win than it was in the 1970s. It just is what it is there. So I don't think that's necessarily an indictment on the Celtics organization. They still have been mostly competitive throughout that time. It's just harder. It's just way harder for them. But hey, they got it done this year. And maybe for the NBA, they got to find a way to get some controversy, right? Because, think about, just bringing the NBA back in this, the controversy in the last Chicago-Indiana game, that drove up ratings.
Oh,
People
definitely.
are attracted to controversy. And right now, there is no controversy in the
No,
NBA.
it's not controversy. They're attracted to polarization. They're attracted to interesting figures that go beyond their talent in the sport. They want to see, the kind of curiosity effect.
Right, like LeBron. He made people love or hate him. Michael Jordan made people love or hate him. Um,
Or even
Caitlin
more than
Clark and
that.
Angel Reese.
And even the way he won those titles, uh, especially the one in 2016, kind of made him a even more big figure in the NBA. But at the same time, now the Celtics fans finally can rest in peace. They are the most victorious team in the NBA because for a while the Celtics and the Lakers were tied
Oh yeah. So
by
the Lakers.
17, and now 18. Celtics 17, Lakers.
Right. And for the Lakers, they're just in a world of hurt right now, to say the least. So in
Yeah,
any
it's
case,
gonna.
though,
Mark Cuban has a lot to figure out for Dallas in terms of how to make this roster better and dealing with two divas.
yep, that's going to be a hard thing to figure out to win a championship. But hey, congratulations to the Boston Celtics for winning the title. We'll see if the Florida Panthers can join them tonight, but they are down 2 goals right now, heading into the third period. All right, let's go to some college baseball here. And this maybe is where we can get into some title talk for our own selves here, because the Tennessee Baseball Volunteers entered Omaha as the #1 seed, and things seemed gloom in the opening match against Florida State. After jumping out early, Florida State just shelled us. I believe it was the third inning. They went up 7-4, and at one point they got up 9-4. We were trailing the entire game. Christian Moore was keeping us in it, but it seemed like Tennessee was going to lose yet another opening game in Omaha. That's when a miracle ninth inning happened. A gracious call in the check swing, and the Vols with timely hits from Blake Burke and Hunter Inslee got and Dylan Dryland got it done 12-11 in the opening game against Florida State, and what
What a
might be
comeback! What a
one of the
comeback!
one of the greatest baseball games I have ever watched.
And it's the kind of game that we say here in Brazil, the kind of game that shows this team is ready to win a championship. This team is ready to win it all.
Right, because I mean the pitching was not there, the defense was not there, nothing was working for us. Tony V, I believe in his interview, like the fourth inning of the game, was like, "Well, we got to find a way to get back at them after that touchdown inning," and we waited till the very end because we've talked about this before how the Tennessee baseball team tends to set a trend for Tennessee sports, right?
Yeah, that's
They
true.
they reintroduced our fan base to the idea of what success looks like. They have helped us, I guess, expect. Because I think there was a long time where at any Tennessee sport we expected to lose these games, any big game, where like if we were getting blown out, it's all over. But with this game on Friday, I remember thinking we can still come back and win this, and we did.
Right,
And
deservedly so.
it's just the fact that we can have a confidence in a Tennessee team to fall behind like that. Um, it's just unbelievable. And it's frankly team of destiny stuff.
Yeah, that's the kind of thing you say. Team of destiny.
Right. And of course, they followed up with a great win on Sunday night against North Carolina, 6-1. Just an excellent performance from Drew Beam, who only let up one run in 5 innings of that match. And the bullpen came in and shut down a really good UNC lineup. And we got big hits from Kavaris Tears and the DH Reese Chapman on the night. And, circling back to Friday real quick, I'd be remiss to not mention Christian Moore, who was 6 of 7, hit for the cycle, the second player ever in College World Series history to hit for the cycle. I mean, frankly, that performance, that was one of the greatest performances in Tennessee athletics history. And in my lifetime, it's only perhaps topped by Jalen Hyatt's 5 touchdowns against Alabama in 2022 in an equally big spot for his team.
Oh yeah, definitely. This run that the Tennessee baseball team is doing this year is impressive. Of course, not all done. Wednesday afternoon, not morning, is going to be I believe it's like a 3 p.m.
Yeah, it's been moved back by an hour. And don't be surprised if we get delays tomorrow. There's probably going to be more storms in the Omaha area. Of course, tonight, Florida, Kentucky got postponed because of storms to tomorrow morning at 11 a.m., which means the winner of that game is going to have to play again against Texas A&M tomorrow night. So the way it stands right now with the bracket, NC State, UNC was eliminated today, and Virginia have been eliminated. So where we stand now, Tennessee and Texas A&M are the teams with the inside track. They just have to win one of their next 2 games to advance to the national championship. Florida State has defeated North Carolina this afternoon 9-5. Florida State must beat Tennessee twice in a row to advance to the national title. And then Kentucky, Florida, whoever wins that game will have to beat Texas A&M twice. Of course, Florida State, they should have beaten us on Friday, but they were unable to close the deal. And you just have to wonder, did they throw the kitchen? Did they throw everything they had at us on Friday? Like, can they replicate?
I think they were too cautious with the pitcher.
True. They should have. The guy should have pulled him. Link Jarrett should have pulled him earlier, and he didn't. And you have to wonder too, when are they going to use Jamie Arnold again? Because Jamie Arnold is their freshman ace, who they went 5 innings with, but we got 6 runs off of him. So it wasn't like he was great against this lineup. He was no Paul Skeens.
Oh, definitely. And he's going to have a feeling of revenge for the Seminoles. They're like, hey, we blew the lead and we lost the game. We want to come back and prove that we can sustain the lead.
True, but I think for the Vols, I mean, I feel like our team's on a mission. Like you can
Oh
tell
yeah,
they're locked in, they're focused. That
and
they
especially the way Tony V kind of shields them in press conference. I think one of the greatest abilities of Tony V is the way he shields his players.
true. Like how like last week he's like, I didn't like the question y'all asked Blake Burke. So let me answer it. It was a Mike Gundy esque answer, but you can show he really cares about his players. And this team is completely bought in. You can tell they have amazing chemistry with each other. Um, and I think they're going to pull it off. Now, I wouldn't be beyond shocked if Florida State won tomorrow, right, and forced a game 7. But I think we'll find a way to get one of these two to move on. I really think Texas A&M will finish off Kentucky or Florida, and that will be one heck of a series. Well, remember, I think we picked after the regional round: Tennessee, Texas A&M.
Yeah, kind of.
So not too surprising that we're perhaps looking down the barrel because I think A&M has a phenomenal baseball team, and that will be a war of a series.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
But I still feel like Tennessee seems like a team of destiny. I anything can happen. I know there's a chance anything will happen. I don't want to count the chickens too early, but I'm going to be real. I really think this might be the team.
Oh yeah, definitely has all the signs that this is the team. I know they have to close the deal tomorrow. Don't get to the game 2.
I'll say this. If we pull this off, if we finish the deal, I'm going to be in Knoxville for that parade. I'm going to Knoxville for the baseball parade. We might have to do a podcast during the parade. Well, if it's a Saturday, I guess you probably wouldn't be able to because it's Rio Bronco. But I'll have
Yeah.
to film some stuff at it and play it during the next podcast or something.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, Saturday afternoon, and it's a road game, so definitely I'll be very busy this Saturday.
True. But man, I hope so. Please let this be the first of many championships across all Tennessee sports, because I think this team can do it. I really, really do. Go
And they
Vols!
deserve more than they can. They deserve. They should. If there's a team that deserves to be where they are and deserves to get a title this year.
Oh, for sure. I really think this is the one, and it can avenge all the 2022 nonsense and everything else. So let's go. Let's get it done, boys.
Let's get it done.
We just need 3 more wins. Is all we need before we've got a national championship rolling back to Knoxville. All right, and the last note I have in American sports before we kind of transition into some soccer, Ryan Blaney won the inaugural race at Iowa. Very entertaining race. Really liked Iowa. Good addition to the schedule. I commend NASCAR for it. Also glad that NBC is now recalling races. They are so much better than Fox. They actually take the sport seriously. It's a novel concept. Take your sport you cover seriously. But Fox has a hard time with it. I don't know why. Of course, they'll be broadcasting IndyCar next year, which I'm scared what they're going to do to the Indianapolis 500. But they are on to Nashville on Sunday. And the dilemma I have, I kind of want to go to this race on Sunday, but it's going to be 97 degrees. I don't know if I really want to sit outside for that. It's going to be a night race, but I still would have to be outside all day during that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very tiring, I imagine.
And plus, assuming Tennessee finishes off Florida State, we'll be playing game 2 Sunday afternoon. And
yeah,
I feel like I would rather watch that. So
yeah, definitely. A lot of people in the state of Tennessee would agree with you.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough decision. But anyway, shout out Ryan Blaney for getting his first win of the season. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, he blew a race at Gateway because he ran out of fuel, but did not blow this one. So congratulations to him. And transitioning into some soccer here, kind of into Brazil, Copa America.
Yeah.
Finally starting.
Oh, yeah. Copa America starting this Thursday night with the current champions, Argentina, facing Canada at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, actually, near where you are, Nicholas Hale.
Yeah.
That's actually a great game. I mean, I would have definitely gone to Atlanta to watch the game, especially
How much
Argentina.
tickets cost for that? Let's see, Argentina, Canada.
Yeah, I'm curious too if if
Because like
how.
I'm not gonna be able to go, but still, I'm just curious.
Yeah, yeah, I'm curious too to see uh tickets
I
for
think at
this game.
$85 for like, well, okay, I think $200 for the cheapest. So, but anyway, yes,
Yeah.
$200.
Oh yeah, so it's very pricey, I would say. Yeah. Brazil debuts on Monday night against Costa Rica. Would have I don't see any problems. I think Brazil. I know there's the Paquetá distraction. Even though he was included in the final group for the tournament, he has been investigating for allegedly fix some things in the game, like getting a yellow card for bookers and people who bet money in gambling websites, and Dorival Jr. is trying to find the ideal team. Brazil is in Orlando until Thursday, and then they go off to LA when they kick off this Copa America against Costa Rica. And U.S. Plays on Sunday night against Bolivia. Probably not much people will be watching, I think, because there's other sporting events. The game is at AT&T Stadium. It's a nice venue. But yeah, Copa America, fun tournament. I know it's not the World Cup, and but still, I think it's a good preparation for U.S. for the 2026 World Cup in Brazil. Definitely, with Argentina, are the favorites to win this. And Brazil definitely needs to win because now Brazil is in a little bit of drought of titles. The last title Brazil got was 2019 World Cup in Brazil. The 2019, actually, Copa America. 2019 Copa America in Brazil. So it's 5 years without a title in the, I'll say, pros, because Brazil won the 2021 Olympics, but that was with the under 23 team. So it kind of does, it counts, but not really. So yeah, so definitely excited for Copa America. Rio
I was gonna say I'm
Branco.
very excited too because it's so much better than the Gold Cup.
Oh yeah.
As
Oh,
CONCACAF Gold Cup is an absolute joke of a competition. Um,
yeah,
so
like unfortunately, US is in a confederation where they in the national in kind of they're the same level in terms of national team with Mexico, but in terms of clubs, it's not. But overall, it's not a good confederation. You have a lot of countries where they are not really a country; they're still connected to their mainland. Some
like,
countries.
and this might be controversial, kind of like with how Australia joined Asia. I think USA and Mexico should join Common Ball.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. For I would have loved to see that. Mexico actually almost joined a couple of years ago. There, there were Mexican teams in Libertadores, but I think Concacaf are more than ever trying to lock both in. They're trying to create tournaments for that. Definitely the privilege there into the Concacaf Champions Cup. But in terms of playing with the best teams in the region, definitely joining Common Ball would have been better, but I don't think that's gonna happen for a long time.
Because I just think
Uh,
it would make your team so much better as well.
oh yeah, definitely.
Because
Yeah, yeah.
that's really kind of where we got to go here. And Bolivia will be an interesting matchup for Sunday because I mean, there's so much criticism of Greg Berhalter. I think he's coaching for his job this entire tournament.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. He needs to at least, like we talked in previous um, episodes. He needs to at least advance to the quarterfinals. At
yeah.
least.
If you for some reason don't make it out of the group stage in your own country, get him
Boom.
out of there. Yeah,
Boom.
get him
Yeah.
out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in any case, very excited. But Rio Branco, Viemos Tigre. Hey, going up
Good
in
win.
competition, wait, it ain't stopping the Tigers.
Yeah, 12 wins, 12. The streak continues because remember, Rio Branco, when they won the title, they were 11 games undefeated, and now it comes to 12. Their all time record is 19. I would imagine that's not gonna happen of breaking the record, but yeah, like Jason is having fun with the streak within the 11. I'm definitely having fun with this new moment of Rio Bronco. Good win, tough game, especially when uh, uh, 2/3 of of the starting lineup of the finals were gone. So the entire defense were replaced. The strikers, some of them were different. Definitely more the defense. Practically only two players were in the overall roster, and they were not like total starters. So it was an entire different defense from goalkeepers to defenders to wings. And at first they struggled a little bit, but then I think the Real Broncos starting to find their identity. Their second half, they were so much better than the first half. It's all about finding your identity. Like Coach Malich is really trying to find that on practice. Today we practice in the morning and in the afternoon. Think the team to find their identity and find a way to create, a way to be a cohesive team. That's what I hope. They're
Mhm.
gonna play on the road against Capivariano on Saturday afternoon. And to wrap up the Brazilian topics, Brazilian Championship in week 10 tomorrow. Botafogo is still number one. I don't know
How
how
much
long.
longer though? How much
I don't know
longer?
for how long, but they're number one, 1 point ahead of Flamengo, and they play tomorrow at home against Atlético Paranaense, which is the fourth place. So it's a number one versus number four. So it's going to be a great matchup. Flamengo plays at home on Thursday against Bahia, which is number three. So we are having number one versus number four and number two versus number three. So that's a good week for Brazilian Championship. Two really good games in Rio.
Oh, absolutely. It's very rare with those type of formats that
Yeah,
you get the top teams going at it.
yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But one team I want to point out is Corinthians. I went to broadcast their game against São Paulo, the Derby game. The crowd was impressive, 46,000 fans, the record of the season. Great atmosphere. But the team, even though they got a draw, they were so disorganized. They were all over the place. The two goals were basically São Paulo defensive mistakes and two really good and lucky shots. But São Paulo deserved to win that game, and Corinthians is in the bottom, 1 point ahead in the relegation zone with a lot of depth, really confusing front office, a president who I think didn't know how big the responsibility was to be in the position that he is when he took over in January. So Corinthian fans right now, what they can do is pray for the better because it's going to be a bumpy, bumpy season.
Oh yeah, just find a way to not get relegated. Don't beat
Yeah,
Santos.
yes. And Santos actually, to wrap up, is struggling in the second division. Believe it or not, Nicholas Hill, Santos is not, even though they had a great start, they're not doing very well in the second division. They lost on Friday against Operario on the road. They lost their last four games. They lost four consecutive games. They are in seventh place. They play, I believe, at home next week for week 12 of the second division. Again, oh, they play on the road actually on Tuesday night next week against Mirassol. And Santos fans are fed up. Oh, actually, they play at home. Sorry, they play at
I mean,
home.
they're gonna riot. I mean, like if you don't get promoted back in a
Yeah,
year, like
yeah.
I mean, you
Santos
really
fans.
might be a dead club.
I don't know because Vasco da Gama at times were relegated and took 2 or even 3 years to get back to first division. Florida scores, so it's 4-3.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, we're getting
It's gonna be
close. So,
it's gonna be a dramatic finish.
oh yeah, definitely. But just to wrap up Santos in second division, Santos fans were expected to have a really steady, no trouble second division, and that's what is not happening. 4 consecutive losses took Santos from first place to seventh place, and tomorrow they're gonna play fifth place Goiás. So it's I'll say a very direct game for getting into the G4 where you get promoted. So Santos better get some results because the fans are not gonna have any patience.
And nor should they.
Yeah,
Like, that's ridiculous.
yeah,
If
definitely.
got demoted to the SoCon, we couldn't win it.
Yeah.
But in any case, I think that's all the time that we have for tonight.
Oh yeah.
We'll see if Florida finishes it off here in the next episode. Also, we'll see if we'll be celebrating a championship in our next podcast. I think if the Vols get it done, it might be time for some champagne or something. But
Oh yeah, definitely. We're gonna have to open champagnes here in Chattanooga and Americana.
yeah, but in any case, go Vols, vamos
Oh,
Tigre. Let's get it done, boys. For Gustavo and Americana Sao Paulo, for my last show at the age of 25. It's probably when I see you
ooh.
next. I'll be 26 on Monday. I'm Nick Hill in Chattanooga, Tennessee, United States. This is the only Brazilian American sports podcast. 2 countries, 2 Americas, all sports. Have a great